are live. So we'll warm up for a second, update the title, and then we'll get cooking. Start sharing it.
Awesome. Welcome to the chat, Carrie.
Dave. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Welcome, other Carrie.
Carrie too. All right, let's just double check that YouTube is looking good here. We're gonna start in about a minute or two for anyone popping in, just warming up things. We're streaming on YouTube for the first time in addition to TikTok. So just bear with us, people. We'll start this episode shortly. Yeah, so just wait for a couple people to pop in, but then we are 100% ready to go.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, just give it a couple minutes. Hello, SSGA. We're just going to give it another minute or so and give some more people coming in. Hi, Elle. Welcome to the chat. And Critter. All right. I see some people trickling in, so let's get this ball rolling, everybody. So welcome, everyone, to FiNC's Live today. At FiNC, we're not here to pretend. We're realists. And at FiNC, we know that politics is literally rigged against everyday citizens like you and me, right? We got big money calling the shots, party bosses picking your options for you, and the media, right, spinning the story, spinning their narrative. And at FiNC, we are bypassing the entire rigged system and building something new with you at the center. So to everyone coming in the chat, welcome. I'm going to break down who we are and what we're building at FiNC. So at FiNC, we are building a citizen-owned alternative to the current political system, a system where your voice actually counts. So picture this, right? Every candidate getting equal spotlight, somewhere where merit beats money, and accountability is not only visible, but demanded in a system. So all of that we are calling digital politics. And that is the lens that's going to show you these rigged patterns that we've talked about in the current political system. So it identifies rigged patterns and helps us build fairer ones that are designed for you and me, right? The people, not just the top 1%. So that is who we are at FiNC. And for today's episode, we're going to talk about up and down politics, right? So it is this new dimension, this new layer to apply to politics. If left versus right talks about ideology, up versus down talks about power. So the real question is, are leaders who we vote for serving down to the people that elected them, or are they serving up to the establishment and their donors? So stick around. We'll be breaking down different patterns to apply the up-down lens to and how to spot that in real time. But before we really dive in and talk with Travis about this new dimension, friendly reminder, tap that heart, jump into the chat, and hit that follow if you like what you're hearing. We're on the road to 1,000 followers, and every little bit of engagement really helps with that growth. So as I pass it to Travis in the chat, as we dive deeper into what it looks like to be an up-serving candidate or a down-serving candidate, let us know in the chat, Have you seen this in current politics? Do you have a local politician who's really good at being a down-serving candidate? We welcome all of that in the chat. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it to Travis, FiNC's founder. And Travis, can you summarize what it means to be up-serving and down-serving in a sentence or two for us?
Sure. So yeah, so Liz kind of explained it in detail, but basically, we want people to look at that beyond left versus right. Really, the most important aspect is up versus down. So kind of Liz said it pretty well that up serving candidates, they're really looking at those above them in power, like their big donors, those that have like the party leaders, those that have higher power, and it's motivated by power and wanting to basically kind of be in bed with those at the highest level. Where down serving candidates are like the grassroots candidates. They're serving those that are not in power, the American people, grassroots, the average person, like technically who they're meant to be for. That's who they're supposed to be representing. It just kind of faded away as democracy crumbled over the last few decades, or arguably ever. And so we really want to show the people that this is the more important factor, that it almost wouldn't matter who's in Congress, for example, whether it's left or versus right. The point of like for healthcare, for example, the fact that those in Congress, both Democrat and Republican, take millions of dollars from big pharma, the private health insurance industry, they are receiving money not to make things better in favor of you. It's in favor of profits, in favor of those that already have the power. So whether it's like Democrats or Republicans in office, whether whoever has the majority, they're still not going to fix healthcare the way that you deserve it to be fixed, because they're just serving their big donors. They're not going to regulate those that are giving them the most money. They're beholden to those people. And so, I know in a lot of ways, most people have a very set view on whether they like more up or more left type policies in healthcare or right policies, and kind of in any scenario. And that's fine. It's just the most important aspect is like, don't believe them just because they're giving you lip service saying, oh yeah, we're going to fix healthcare, we're going to make it affordable. Okay, well, you're not doing that regardless of which party's in power. We have charts where one side has a majority across the board in the House, Senate, and the presidency, and your healthcare still sucks. We're still rated around number 40 in quality. There's 39 other countries that have more a better quality of healthcare, and we are the most expensive per person, per capita of healthcare that we spend per person than any other first world nation. And it's because they're so embedded with those that give them the money. So, we're not saying to get rid of the left versus right in your head, but this up versus down really adds the most important layer that we need to pay attention to. We're not like, society is built in that they're not talking about this layer, but it needs to come into fruition. And this is key, that more important than voting for just D down the line or R down the line is voting for somebody that actually has your interests in mind. Is there true intentions to serve you as a voter, to make your healthcare better, your environment better, your whatever, and any issue? Are they there to help you, or are they there to benefit those that are giving them the most money? And that's ultimately what this boils down to, up versus down politics.
Absolutely. And it's welcome to the new people in the chat. We're FiNC, and today we're talking about a whole new dimension to analyze politics, right? We're used to the left versus right nonsense, right? The division that creates. We're talking about seeing if someone is up-serving versus down-serving. And for those new to the room, up-serving politicians serve power, their donors, and the establishment, while down-serving candidates serve us, the little people who got them into office, people who went out to vote, and their constituents. So it's a whole new dimension of how to identify power within the system, right? And like what's on the screen, asking these vital questions: who benefits from how these politicians vote? Who is funding that vote? And really You know, who are they accountable to? Shouldn't it be us? Yes, but is it? Here at FiNC, we say no, and studies have shown no. Politicians are not accountable to us, and that's what we're talking about today.
Cool. Yeah. And so continuing on, so the down, and some people say like, oh well, a politician, they're always going to be like this, the saying, power corrupts, was it ultimate power corrupts ultimately, or something like that. But it's not true. There's millions of candidates that want to serve you. Like, the irony of it all is that they're actually called civil servants. Like, this is a fact. Like, they're the job of somebody in office is to serve us, serve you as the voter. You are their boss, and that's why you voted them. You hired them, essentially. That's kind of what voting is whoever the most people want to hire is who's elected. But they're supposed to be civil servants. They're supposed to serve you. That's why you pay taxes. And they're not, though. They're paying. They're serving their big donors, and it's not. It's not. That's not democracy. But again, there are candidates. First of all, there's millions of candidates that are grassroots. Most of them don't win. Most of them you've never heard of, but not all of them. Some of them are in office. It's a small percentage, unfortunately. Especially like on local level, they're more likely to be able to win, and it just gets harder and harder the higher it goes up, because it's more about raising the most money rather than actually serving the people. Right now, it's really about the incentive structure is a big piece to the problem here. But these candidates, there are a lot of candidates that only take small dollar donations. They refuse corporate money. They refuse super PAC money. They focus on getting $5, $10, $27 at a time. And those are the candidates that we want to amplify and elevate their message. Those are the candidates that are going to serve you. And so, what we're building, the citizen-owned system that we're building, is all about amplifying those that deserve to be amplified, but building a system that lifts those that deserve to be lifted, that actually are civil servants and actually want to represent you, while building accountability mechanisms against the upserving candidates. If somebody's taking legal bribes, we can't make it illegal anytime soon, but we can make it harder on them. Let's make it more transparent. Let's make it easier for you to know what industries these people are making their money off of. If you care about healthcare, don't vote for somebody that takes millions from the private health insurance industry. And if you care about environment, don't elect somebody that takes money from big oil, for example. It doesn't matter what side of the fence you are on, but we want to make it easier for you to see who's funding their campaign, and is it a conflict of interest in like who's giving them the money versus what policies they're supposed to pass in office. So even right now, that information is publicly available. It's not the most user friendly, but for example, you could go to opensecrets.org right now. Mostly federal level, some state level, you could type in a politician, you could see who funds their campaigns. In the long term, we want to make that easier for everyone. We're gonna pull information from there and other sources and make it just super user friendly, very clear of like what industry the money's coming from per politician, and tied to their promises, things like that. But that's going to be kind of in a couple year process. But for now, just making it easier and showing you what resources are available today to show you this information. But bottom line is, like, it's important to identify this, to lift those that don't have those conflicts of interest and do want to actually promote democracy. If we can't just stay in this lesser two evil trap, because then we're just spiraling into oblivion. We have one side that's like, I would just say generally, we have both sides are not about democracy. You could argue maybe one is doing more harm for democracy faster, but they're both, neither side is helping democracy grow. They're shrinking democracy regardless of what side. So, you know, maybe one side is doing it faster than the other, but neither side is promoting democracy. And there's people in both parties that are trying to promote democracy. They're just being shut out by the gatekeepers of the parties, the mainstream media. They don't have as much money, so by nature they can't rate. They don't have as much of a voice, because unfortunately money is voice right now. That's part of what we're trying to overcome and build a structure that bypasses the need to have that much money. You know, by digitizing the system and having one standardized communication infrastructure, we can give all candidates a voice without them needing to raise millions of dollars. You know, every politician should have a chance to win you over, and then the more that America resonates with them, the louder their voice should be able to become, and not just about raising the most money from just the people at the very top. So that's ultimately what we're working on as one of our main one of our main missions. Not all of it, but a big part of it is just, you know, by nature, the grassroots politicians, even independent media, grassroots organizations, they all have this disadvantage that they're like the smaller guy. It's kind of like a small business. A small business can't compete with like Amazon. If you're like a local hardware store, you have a major disadvantage than something like an Amazon or a Walmart. And so, you know, in capitalism, that's fine, but in government, money shouldn't buy you, shouldn't override the will of the people, and shouldn't override, you know, the votes of what America is trying to, what America actually wants, rather than just 1% of people with the most money telling politicians what to support. Got this.
Yeah. Auburn in the chat asked a great question, you know, and they're absolutely correct. We cannot beat billionaires at their own game. And before I pass that to Travis, I just want to preface it by saying that's why we're not playing that game, right? That is why we're building this entirely new citizen-owned system that relies on people power, the digital age, and connecting quality politicians, you know, grassroots movements, and independent journalism, and creating our own ecosystem that rivals, right? As individuals, we can't do that, but as a collective, we sure can. But Travis, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts about, the actual question was, we can't compete with billionaires and corporations. How do we get money, big money out of politics?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great question. So yeah, basically, so the fundamentals of what we're doing. So the slogan tied to that is we can't change the rules, but we could change the game. You know, we can't change the legislation because we're not the ones in the power, and we're not the one dictating the legislation. But so the idea is that so what FiNC is doing, we're building what we call a meta movement, a movement of movements. Basically, we're building commonality clusters is what we're calling it, at least clusters. We're fine-tuning the name this week, but we're building these clusters. So imagine that two different organizations, two different parties, two different politicians that fundamentally disagree with each other on ideology, but we all have the same thing in common of true representation. We basically want to build this umbrella around the commonality that whether you're a third party, you're independent media, you're an average American, we don't want to divide us on left versus right. We want to bring the commonality that, hey, we all want true representation. We all want a healthier democracy. We all want more choices in government. We all want money out of politics. Like 85-90% of America wants money out of politics. 80-90% of America wants to stop the insider trading of Washington. So the concept that we're building is allowing people, media, underdog politicians, parties, organizations to agree with each other in certain ways while competing with each other in other ways. So going back to the idea of clusters, so imagine, you know, if you're a progressive, that's one cluster. If you're a libertarian, that's another cluster. So you guys are in opposite clusters in a lot of ways. Healthcare, like a lot of policy issues, a libertarian is not going to agree with a progressive. But when it comes to money out of politics, ranked choice voting, ending gerrymandering, things like that, that level the playing field benefits both of you guys. Anyone that's not part of the status quo benefits by certain policy changes and certain structural changes. And that's where we want to unify America while still respecting us being all different. We want to respect everyone's different political beliefs. So even there's going to be clusters, subclusters. So like progressive is a cluster, libertarian is a cluster. But then, people that want universal healthcare, that's one cluster. People that want just private healthcare, but just want to drive costs down through competition, that's another cluster. Certain social stances, that's a cluster. So everyone could be in as many clusters as they want, whatever parts resonate with you. And the idea is like, so, here's a progressive, here's a libertarian, for example, like, oh, look, we share these 3 clusters, but then we're different on these other clusters. So when a policy works, like when there's a policy on the table that both clusters agree with, they could join forces. And then when they disagree on a certain issue, that's when they compete, but at least not be like deadly enemies. Let's have a healthy competition. Democracy should be about competition. It's not about one person or one party, one ideology winning everything. We want, democracy is about perspectives. So the idea is kind of the 2 things it boils down to is framing things differently by doing like this representation and these clusters and building this, the ultimate connective tissues, true representation. And then the second piece to that is through digital activism, that we can amplify non-establishment narratives by helping one another. So like, for example, an underdog politician, again, let's say they're the Libertarian Party, underdog politician, the establishment media, they don't give you attention if you're third party, but know who might give you attention? Independent media. So in these clusters in this system, we want to build an alternative to like whatever you don't get from the establishment. We want to replace it with a grassroots decentralized version. So instead of like the 6 media companies that own 90% of TV media, we want to replace that with hundreds, maybe eventually thousands of independent media that can be the voice where the establishment refuses to be. So there's a lot of different scenarios where the idea of now that we're in the information age, you can travel. Like, the bottom line is that why do politicians need money? Because money equals a louder voice. It's all about marketing, and it's about being loud enough for voters to hear you. And so what the digital age offers is a new way that you can have a loud voice. You could get, if you have something really powerful to say, millions of people can hear what you say without you spending a penny. Even last week we had one of our videos went viral and we got 375,000 views, almost 500,000 views. We didn't spend a penny, and yet 375,000 people saw a message. So that's what's different with the digital age. That's what's unprecedented now, and that's the only way that we could get around it. That's how we change the game, is by playing the noob battle in digital spaces instead of physical spaces, and not to get rid of the physical spaces, but add this new layer of digital competition, digitally amplifying each other's voices. So in conclusion on this section, it's about like these clusters, finding commonalities, being okay with the competition, and then also learning to amplify one another, even if you don't agree on every issue. Like when, amplify your underdog politicians should amplify independent media, should amplify political organizations, should amplify underdog politicians, and everyone should amplify everyone as much as they can when they align. Even if they don't align, sometimes you throw the voice out, hey, I don't necessarily agree with this message, but listen to this, and anyone that likes it, run with it. So that's a lot of what we plan. That's what makes our mission unique and something that no one else is doing. So I think that pretty much answers that question. For some reason today I'm not the best at multitasking and reading comments at the same time as I'm talking. So I'm going to pass this to Liz, and then I'm going to read what's
Absolutely.
going on.
No, Travis, I thought that was a great answer. To summarize that a little further too, at FiNC, we want to go beyond the left versus right narrative, because where has that gotten us? Every 4 years, 2 to 4 years, you vote R down the line or D down the line. Why? Because those are the options given to you. You're forced to only choose between, left versus right. And gosh, hasn't democracy gone downhill? Really, no matter who's in office. So what we are saying is, well, let's stop being, like Travis said, let's stop being mortal enemies just because we vote differently. What are things we do agree on? How do we move that needle a little closer towards a more perfect democracy? And it's about, like he said, those commonality clusters. In the chat, you see Carrie talking. I work with Carrie. Carrie and I are very different politically, but there's a lot of stuff that we overlap on that doesn't really talk about ideology. It talks about access to democracy, right? Big money, better candidates, and just, not waiting every 4 years for that one Tuesday to make your voice known, right? How do we utilize the digital space? So I hope that, answered your question, Auburn. Thank you. And welcome to the people who have joined us recently in the chat. We're talking about a new layer of politics, up-serving versus down-serving, right? Power, donors, establishment versus constituents, grassroots, everyday person. Who are you serving? Where does your power lie? So like Auburn did, we would love to have more comments or questions in the chat box. I super appreciate all the hearts you guys have given us. We're on the road to 5,000 of those, but without, taking up too much of Travis's time, yeah, I'll hand the mic back to you, Travis, to keep talking about up-down politics.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so the next part here, I've touched on a little bit about independent media and media in general. So the main one when we talk about up-down politics, we're talking about mostly the politicians, but it could be applied to a lot of different places. The main two is what we're focusing on, is just the politicians. And to be clear, most third-party candidates and independents are down-serving, probably not all, but most. But even within the two parties, there's down-serving candidates. So, it's separate from the left versus right mentality. But anyway, media is also a piece of that. So, right now our Shift the Lens topic this week and next week is about overcoming media manipulation. We'll talk about that more later in the week and next week. But the idea is the mainstream media is part of the establishment, both left and right. There's a Republican establishment and there's a Democrat establishment, and they're two sides of the same coin. Yes, in a lot of ways they're different, but they work to balance of keeping the status quo, and you feeling well, I hate both choices, but I like one choice better than the other, and then you're just stuck in this lesser two evils, and no matter what, they get their way. At the end of the day, by the time we're at the general election, you get an establishment-approved Democrat and an establishment-approved Republican, and regardless of your choices, it's going to kind of be the same status quo. The rich are going to get richer, the middle class is going to be shrinking, democracy is going to be crumbling. Again, maybe one side crumbles faster than the other, but both sides are crumbling the system. So slow or fast burn, you're still burning. And so, so getting into the media, another beautiful thing that happened with the internet is is independent media. That now, for the first time, independent journalists can sprout up. Well, maybe not the first time, but decades ago there used to be journalism, and then as the consolidation of power happened, there's less and less companies. They're all being bought by now it's ultimately 6 companies own the majority of media. But now there's a counterbalance with the independent media coming on board. So, a lot of you guys, I'm sure, know you follow different independent media online that have that they're mini, they're their own journalists. It might be just one person that's on TikTok or YouTube, but sometimes it's a whole outlet team of people doing things, anything up to little guys to something like the Young Turks. I think is one of the biggest independent medias that exists right now. Whether you support you agree with them or not, that's not for me to say, but the idea is there's new alternative media to give you more of an objective reality that's not bought by those in power. Because it's funny, like even in the last like about a decade, like even with billionaires, they're literally taught that you should invest in establishment media to shape it your way. So most billionaires have a couple media companies that they own, and they shape it to benefit their companies, and like they want the narratives to go the way that they make the most profits, and it reinforces the status quo. So in essence, what I'm trying to say here is just for we want people to be able to rate their media the same as what we're saying with politicians, up versus down. Is that when the media is giving you news, are they just doing what their sponsors tell them to do? Is it their advertisers? Because you are not their customer, you are their product. Their customer is the advertisers, the ones that pay for the advertisements that go in between their news that they give you. And you could do the research. There's story after story where if a news anchor was too honest about the system, they'll get a call from their advertisers and they'll say, hey, I don't like that narrative that you're telling the people. If you do this again, I'm going to pull out all my 10,000 companies and $80 million a quarter that I give you guys, blah, blah, blah. Like they threaten them. And then they have to do the bidding of their advertisers. So advertisers are just regular businesses, but also political advertisers. And so that just the establishment media really feeds into the concentration of power, concentration of influence. The bottom line is like your vote does count, but we're being manipulated into its false choice. We're voting for these two choices. We're so trapped that we have to. We get so desperate to make sure the worst or evil won't win that we don't actually vote what we want to vote for, and we vote for like the lesser of two evils. But again, it's approved by both sides. So long story short, we're and for this section, it's about promoting independent media, giving people better choices, more choices. Again, it doesn't matter to us, left, right, third party. Like you find independent media that you resonate with, that you believe in, and that you agree with, their opinion. Let's face it, everyone is going to have some kind of bias. We're all human, but find the ones that are going to be. There's a difference between having believing you're telling the truth and knowing you're not telling the truth. Like the establishment media, they're purposely selling an establishment approved narrative. That's wrong. If you're independent media, not that they're all perfect, but they're trying to give you a truth. They're trying to see as objectively as they possibly can with the beliefs and knowledge that they have, and they're attempting to give you more of an honest truth. Again, I can't say this for 100% of them, but it's more likely than the establishment news. So again, up versus down really boils down to the intention. What is their intention? Are they there to give you genuine information, or are they there to manipulate you based on who's giving them the most money? And so that's the media part of this.
Yeah, no, I think that's so great, Travis, that because at FiNC, we talk a lot about politicians and what they say and the lack of accountability, but media plays such a huge part. Whether that is a new concept to you or you've been knowing that, media is such a huge piece of the pie to politics and to the overall narrative of what's going on. So up versus down politics, I would take it even a step further of be selfish of who you vote for. Are they representing you? Are they saying the things that you put them into power to say? Do the same with media. Don't just be barked at by, just because they wear a different colored tie on a right-leaning media or left-leaning media. Do you feel like you're getting information, or do you feel like you're just being yapped at for an hour and you don't feel any more inclined or educated about what's going on in the world, right? Politicians, like Travis said before, are civil servants. Are you being served? Are you being represented? Or is your local politician lining their pockets Is their world getting better while, nothing changes in your world? And so that's really what we're asking for. You don't have to change who you vote for or anything like that. That is your business. We're here to say, get selfish. Are you being represented? Do you feel like you have a part in democracy? Or are you just okay waiting for another 4 years to pass and hopefully something changes? And, you know, we're here to make realistic changes to democracy. So yeah, I'm going to pass it back to Travis to talk a little bit about how we come together as citizens, right? The left versus right loves to keep us as enemies, loves to make it seem like you're either morally over here or morally over there. And we're saying, hey, there's a bigger world to explore. And so I'm going to pass it to Travis to talk about that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so right now it's one of the most partisan times in modern history. Like it didn't used to be this like tense and so separate, where like you could get into like a literal brawl over politics these days. It wasn't. Sorry, my dog's doing something loud. But yeah, so we're in a very partisan time, and a lot of that is by design. That's to distract us. Like, they want to keep us divided so we don't actually vote for the people that we want to vote for. I mean, I hear it with Democrats all the time when we talk about how like the Democrats are part of the problem. They'll say, "Oh, don't shake the boat right now because Trump is such a problem. Like, don't shake up the boat." But it's like, well, you gave birth to any problem that we're living in right now. You're part of the problem. So, these people are just trapped in that lesser two evils. That, oh, I'd rather like stick to like half democracy. It's like one choice is like maybe no, like getting rid of democracy. The other one's like half-ish, like pretend democracy. It's like, no, people want real democracy. That's, people have died for the sake of democracy, and we're losing it. And yes, and yeah, like Carrie's saying, both sides of the problem, and then both sides blame the other side, and they want to manipulate us. They want to keep us divided. Because at the end of the day, the majority is on our side. So that's the beauty of what up versus down politics. If we don't separate ourselves, if you separate ourselves left versus right, you're splitting the country basically in half. But if you separate us up versus down, you're kind of putting in a lot of ways 98% of the country against 2%, maybe 90-10. There's plenty of people there's some people that want to keep the status quo for their own reasons, or just scared of change or whatever. But bottom line is the people power is on the side. If you split down up versus down, you're talking about at least 85 to 95% of Americans on one side. So this is a way to unify us. We do the Thanksgiving test. I've done it in my own family a couple years now. Where if you went to Thanksgiving and you say, all right, no, let's not name specific parties, not specific politicians, but I'm going to make certain statements and let me know what you guys all agree. And you say, I think that money is corrupting the system. I think that the politicians are corrupt. I don't believe I'm being represented. You can make statements, gerrymandering is wrong. Insider trading in Washington is wrong. There's so many things that you can talk about. The system isn't working. The system's breaking down. Education's breaking down. Both sides will agree with you. Again, yes, there's a pipeline that could get you into a fight with somebody, but these overarching conversations, you'll see that most people agree. And again, like one of the phrases I bring a lot is like, whether you and your neighbor agree on the same side of politics, you don't feel represented, they don't feel represented. You feel like the system has been getting worse over the last decade, they feel it. They want change, you want change. Like, let's unify there. And there's so much to unify on. Stronger democracy, stronger choices, having an actual democracy where you actually vote, your vote is not manipulated and you're stuck in a false choice. So that's a lot of how to unify us. And I guarantee you, if we actually had an actual democracy that wasn't like, wasn't puppeted by like 1%, we would figure out our problems. We would work out our differences on climate issues and healthcare and even the social issues. I know that's a very heated one, but we would move in a good direction. And you know, democracy is never going to be perfect. You know, there's always going to be fighting, but like that's the point of democracy's structure, is to sort out the differences. Is like, you know, we should have healthy debates, healthy discussions. You know, everyone should know their choices on each issue. They should know the pros and cons of each choice. And then when push comes to shove, we build a consensus around it. And like, you know, no, you're not going to get 100% of people to agree on something. But again, that's what democracy is, and the majority rules. But first, like, know your choices, know the pros and cons, and then you get to make a choice. And then, you know, at the end of the day, the majority wins. And it's also more complicated than that. You know, you have states, you have districts, so it's not like the whole country. You know, it's not just like 51% the whole country wins one thing. It's, you know, it's all broken up in the complex system of districts and states and, you know, all these different things on purpose, because they want us to be able to sort out our differences. The problem is that we got manipulated and stuck in a false sense of choice, because we have the ability to choose. We're just being manipulated to choose the wrong way or be limited on our choices. Yeah, go ahead, Liz.
Yeah, so yeah, that Thanksgiving test, gosh, we've all been there, right? Holiday parties, you know, Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever, birthday parties, someone's going to bring in politics, and that just makes everyone's stomach drop, right? So, what we're adding to the conversation here, the divide usually, right? And let's be honest, when it is characterized as left versus right, it's morally good versus morally bad, you know, whatever party you're in. When really, you know, every election, therefore, you either win completely or you lose completely. And that's not the nature of politics. We all lose when the establishment wins. We all lose when we have less choices. We all lose when the media is only a talking head for the establishment. We all lose when money calls the shots in politics instead of actual votes. So, you know, a big conversation around politics is, oh, like Travis said, it's so divided, it's so heated, you know, I've lost friends, I've lost family, whatever. Well, gosh, we're not that different, the actual voters. Big money is ruining politics, the media is corrupt, and we all want better choices, right? So we're saying, let's unite. Let's have that commonality cluster of uniting over things that actually do something for democracy, rather than just, you know, Facebook posts calling the other side, you know, whatever. So with that, welcome to the chat, you know, new people. Appreciate all the hearts given. We're at 3,500. Feel free to give a couple more. We always love to see that reach 5,000. And for the next section, we're going to be talking about how changing this one dimension, right? Going from left versus right into another dimension of up versus down, how that actually can change the system. So I'll pass it to Travis to talk about what that looks like and how change happens when we start to see things differently.
Yeah, so really we're just going to kind of summarize our solutions here. But yeah, so basically just kind of concluding the conversation up until now is, you know, just by adding this one extra layer, we're not asking you to abandon left versus right. I mean, that is a separate issue, like looking at, like, part of what we want is eventually having third parties being viable, independence. Not everything could be put into two boxes, so that is true. But, you know, you're going to stand where you stand on policies. No, you know, no one's changed your mind anytime recently, and we're not going to change your mind there either. But just adding this one extra layer. So if you like right, that's fine, but look at right down serving candidates. And if you care and you're more left, then that's fine, but do left down serving candidates. And again, at this stage, just go to opensecrets.org, look at who funds their campaign. Do they take big dollar donations? Do they have $10,000 dinners with rich people? Or do they actually have a volunteer system and go door to door and actually talk to the average people that they're meant to be serving? You know, things like that. There's a lot of indicators to know who they serve. And again, there's millions of candidates that run every year. The key is winning, is helping them in the primary is where they need their power. Because if America just ignores the primaries, by the time you get to the general, it's already the lesser of two evils. Our only chance is to have healthy primaries, and that's where these grassroots candidates stand a chance. So that's where they need the most help. But anyway, all these kind of things, we're gonna help provide these resources as we keep building out our resources and stuff for you guys. But first step is really building the resources for you to find this information today, and then the next step is to actually consolidate it and streamline it over in the long term, so that our long-term plan is with digital democracy. You put your zip code in, it shows you every single candidate that's running, who funds their campaign, all that good stuff. Just it's going to take time. It's going to need America to be part of this movement with us for that to become a reality. So that's a little bit more of a medium-term goal. Hopefully by the midterm elections, we'll have some of that launched. But anyway, so our solutions immediately, though, is really about the meta movement. So again, it's about connecting grassroots organizations, underdog politicians, independent media, build these clusters so that people can amplify one another, and amplify these non-establishment narratives. So again, if you're a third party or even a grassroots candidate in the two parties, the establishment's not going to be giving you media attention. So we're going to build a network of independent media to be the voice that they refuse to be. So there's a lot. So we just want to help intertwine the underdog candidates, the politicians, organizations, parties, to be able to lift each other where they agree, collaborate where they agree, compete where they don't agree, without becoming mortal enemies. So it's building this connective tissue around true representation. It's building these clusters that help you identify, where do I align with this person? Where am I different with this person? Then step two is the shared stage, social media now, digital democracy later. It's about digital activism and how do we take digital activism to the next level? How do we utilize social media to amplify these voices? Because like I was saying earlier, like for the first time in human history, you don't need millions of dollars to have a voice. You just need social media and people caring to, share, like, and follow to make that voice get louder. It's the same here when we ask you guys, when Liz is saying for you guys to like, tap us, give us more hearts and follow and stuff, that gives us a louder voice that spreads our word. So in a way, social media, it's definitely not totally democratic the way they built the algorithms, but it is founded on democratic ideals that, if an idea is more popular, it should rise to the top. And if people don't like an idea, it should stay to the bottom, So again, it's not totally that perfect with the way that the current social media empires do it, but it's generally that way. And when we build digital democracy, that will be in that way. We'll make a much more fair type of an algorithm to do these pieces. But even before digital democracy, we just need it. We're just unifying the citizen-owned space where every candidate is seen, every citizen is heard, and every journalist is free to speak. Just like help grassroots help other grassroots. Like, the ultimate flaw with decentralized or grassroots efforts is that the resources are decentralized. So you don't have as much money, you don't have as many resources. But if we could work to lift each other up, then you can build something that rivals the establishment. Like the progressive movement, they have millions and millions of people. It's still not enough against the establishment. Hey, if you had libertarians on your side and you guys move the needle in the same direction, now you have some lift off. And then even like disaffected voters in the two parties, other third parties, we gotta, like, we've been diversifying too much. Now it's time to consolidate and work together where we align. It's the only way to rival the establishment. And we do have these things in common. Poll after poll, there's plenty of stuff that brings us together. The money out of politics, the unfairness of the broken system, all these things. Most people agree with these things, and it just, just no one's unified it while allowing to respect people's differences, and that's the key that makes this so different. So those are kind of that's kind of the gist of our solutions. There's a lot more on our website, futureis.org. We talk about all this stuff. And especially this week and next week is all about overcoming media manipulation. So that's our big focus for these 2 weeks. We call it Shift the Lens series. For 2 weeks, we have a main topic that we discuss. But yeah, so that's kind of our solutions. Liz, I'll pass it to you to if you want to add on to anything about the solutions, and then we'll start kind of wrapping up.
Absolutely, Travis. I think you did a great job of talking about our solutions, because that's what people really want. We all know democracy is not working for us, but what do we do about it, right? And Up versus Down lets us talk about what we actually care about, what unites us as a people, because you can't break down citizens in just 2 boxes. That just isn't the way to go. So it's identifying power, and building a coalition, building efforts to uplift underdog politicians where we do support each other, and where we, where else are you allowed to cross party lines to unify on a topic, right? We're building an opportunity for the needle to move, and not just sitting on our hands for the next 4 years hoping a good candidate comes along. We're building a system that uplifts good candidates, helps build clusters of what brings us together, right? The big issues: money in politics, better candidates, and independent journalism. And where can we find how to influence democracy today? And that is the digital space. That is the power of the internet. It is the power of social media, and it's people power. Like someone said before, what do we do about billionaires controlling the government and policy? We don't have quite enough money, right, to rival them in that way, but we have people power, and we have the power of the internet. So like Travis said, visit futureis.org, check out our new homepage, check out, we talked about some videos we had, but on Imager, find us, Future Is, and check out our videos, and liking, commenting, sharing, all those things really build momentum and effort. Thank you guys so much for coming to our live today. And yeah, and we'll see you guys tomorrow, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and 11 Pacific. And again, the main thread for this week and next week is media manipulation. How do we identify it, and how do we build something beyond it? So with that, I think we'll wrap up. Unless you have any last comments, Travis?
Yeah, just check us out. FutureIs.org is our handle for like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We're now on Substack, starting to build that up. YouTube. We have we did a Family Guy parody, posted today. You'll find that on all our socials. And then yeah, we hit a lot of new milestones. So a lot of new content is being produced right now. So sometimes around the solution issue of the week, like media manipulation, but also a lot of other things. So tune in as we keep adding new topics to these lives, and we're doing them three times a week going forward. And yeah, our website is futureis.org. Our handle is futureis.org on all the platforms that we're on. Discord is our official online community. So if you want to really get involved in this meta movement, you could join us there. We engage everywhere. We like comments, we respond, DM us. We're there to engage with y'all, and want to hear more feedback, and want to build this with you. This is not just about us deciding what's good for America. This is about building structure that empowers you to make your own decisions, and you to be having a voice to help build the future of politics. So yeah, that I will bid you adieu. So thank you guys for showing up, and we'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you. Okay, we're off live. TikTok, let me get us off YouTube.